This is an incidental find. Sometimes when we do post-mortems, it's not just about what we're expecting to find, it's incidental.
In November of 2007, a series of photographs appeared on Gurochan, an image board known for fictional horror artwork and other extreme material. At first, the photographs might have seemed like the kind of disturbing content users expected to encounter there. But there was a major difference. The images appeared to show a real deceased person rather than a fictional character or an artistic depiction. Gurochan was intended for fictional and artistic material, so real photographs of a corpse did not fit the site's fictional-only policy. According to accounts of the original incident, the thread was removed very quickly, but the photographs had already been copied. The posts are generally dated to around November 15th, 2007. And within minutes, the same images appeared on 4chan's random board/B, where they reached a much larger audience. In the darkest corners of the internet, the case would eventually become known as Dissected Chan. Unlike the original Gurochan post, the 4chan repost contained more than just photographs. The anonymous poster included a long first-person account claiming to describe what had happened to the woman after her death. The writer claimed that the woman was 19 years old and referred to her as Alex. The account then made increasingly disturbing claims about what the poster had done to the body, including sexual contact, deliberate manipulation of the remains, and staging several of the photographs before allegedly cleaning the body, applying makeup, and returning it to the family. However, the more people read the story, the less convincing it seemed. The writing was filled with broken English and sensational details, and the tone appeared designed to shock the reader. More importantly, later sources have described the text as a copypasta, meaning it was likely pre-existing material that was reused rather than a genuine first-person account written specifically about these photographs. That also means the name Alex should not be treated as the woman's real identity. There is no confirmed connection between that name and the woman in the photographs. This created an important distinction that would follow the case for years. The story attached to the photographs could have been reused purely for shock value, while the photographs themselves may have come from an entirely different source. The poster also claimed that additional photographs would eventually be released. They never appeared. By then, however, the existing images had already spread far beyond the original communities. There are more than 20 images in total. They appear to show a deceased woman on a metal table, with a drainage catheter inserted into her body. The setting and the way the body is positioned make the scene look like a post-mortem examination or something similar. Another photograph shows a second naked body identified as male. The images are so disturbing that much of what they appear to show is difficult to put into words. Taken together, they seem to suggest that someone involved had an extreme and deeply disturbing interest in the bodies of the dead. Necrophilia is a term used to describe a sexual interest in dead bodies. In psychology and medicine, it is considered a type of paraphilia. The more than 20 photographs raised the disturbing possibility that someone with access to human remains may have crossed professional boundaries. The person behind the photographs could potentially have been a pathologist, a medical professional who examines bodies after death, or someone else with access to a facility where human remains were handled. Another person can also be seen standing nearby in one of the images, but it is unclear who they were or why they were there. There were a few clues that investigators hoped might answer those questions. The first came from the files themselves. Copies of the photographs reportedly contained a date of November 14th, 2007. That was notable because the images appeared online around November 15th, seemingly close to the timeline described in the original post. But the date could not tell investigators where the photographs had been taken or who had taken them. So attention shifted to the setting. The room and equipment were examined for anything that might identify the facility. Some people believed it resembled a medical teaching facility, while others saw similarities to a morgue. There were also theories about Eastern Europe and Russia, but there was no identifying detail that could settle the question. The same uncertainty followed the attempts to identify the woman. One theory pointed to 19-year-old Kelly Nascimento, who died in Florida on November 11, 2007. Her age and the timing of her death initially made the connection seem interesting. That theory collapsed under closer examination. Kelly's eye color didn't match the woman in the photographs. Nothing established that they were the same person. And once those possibilities were examined, the case was left with something frustratingly familiar. The photographs seemed to contain clues, but no clue could actually be verified. At this point, the investigation seemed to have reached a dead end. Then, in 2018, one of the photographs appeared again. This time, it was found in a completely different context. It was found in a Chinese language article about plastination, a process used to preserve donated human bodies for education and anatomical study. The article was connected to the work of Gunther von Hagens, who became widely known for his plastination exhibitions. The discovery immediately raised a possibility. Could the photograph have come from a facility involved in plastination? It was an interesting lead, but there was no evidence showing that the article was the original source of the image. It could have been taken from somewhere else. So the photograph had resurfaced, but its true origin was still unknown. Around the same time, another internet mystery known as Dr. Gloves was also being investigated. In that case, the evidence in the images was clear enough that investigators could identify specific locations tied to Dignity Health facilities in California. But nothing like that ever happened with Dissected Chan. Nobody ever came forward to claim the woman's identity, and the surroundings remained impossible to place. Despite all the theories, none of them brought investigators any closer to the person behind the photographs. The woman remained unidentified, and the person who had access to her body was never publicly established. What makes the case so difficult is that there are just enough clues to suggest the photographs may be genuine, but not enough evidence to connect those clues into a clear story. The original account appears unreliable, the location has never been confirmed, and even the strongest leads have raised more questions than they answered. The photographs first appeared online in November of 2007. Nearly 2 decades later, their origin remains unknown.